A little backstory. My older half-brother, who I didn't know growing up, lives out of state, recently went through a very nasty divorce that he actually hid from me for about a year. I've heard multiple sides to the story as to what led to the breakup, but it all basically goes back to our brother turning very cold-hearted towards his wife, eventually cheating on her, followed up by lots of mind games. I am extremely close to his ex-wife, and I love her very deeply. Since she is the mother of my niece and nephew, I have made it clear to my brother I am not choosing sides in this divorce because of the fact that she's their mother, which he supports. I'm getting married in 2 months, and I invited both my brother and his ex-wife to my wedding. His ex made it pretty clear she does not intend to go to the wedding because my brother will be in attendance, which I understand, while my brother has recently been pestering me to allow him to take his new girlfriend to the wedding. His new girlfriend is the same girl he cheated with, which makes me uncomfortable, as well as my other sisters. Since I invited his ex-wife, I feel it is rude to let him bring the girl who he cheated with to the wedding. I have expressed this to him, and originally he understood, but he's been asking me repeatedly now. Today he gave me an ultimatum that if she can't go, he will not go. I expressed to him that if that's how he felt about it, I would be sad by his decision, but would understand, but I wasn't changing my mind. As soon as he saw I wasn't backing off, he took it back and then confessed she is 6 months pregnant. This came as a shocker. I congratulated him but said that didn't change my mind and the conversation was over. One of my sisters says I'm an a-hole for not letting her go, considering she will be the mother to our niece or nephew, while my other sister says she shouldn't go to the wedding. It's important to note that my sisters and I have no issue with meeting her in general. We just want it to be in a neutral situation, not at the wedding. I feel like it's ridiculous to meet her for the first time at my wedding because of how busy I will be, and for whatever reason, my brother says we cannot meet her prior due to scheduling. I honestly just don't want wedding day drama. Am I the a-hole for not letting my brother take his pregnant girlfriend to my wedding? Not the a-hole. It's your wedding. You get to decide who comes or not. Inviting her could easily cause loads of unnecessary drama when that day is supposed to be for you and your significant other. Your brother is the a-hole for his ultimatum. Not the a-hole. It is highly inappropriate for him to bring his months pregnant affair partner to meet your family for the first time at your wedding. Tell bro that you would be happy to meet his girlfriend another time, but your wedding is not the place for him to introduce her to family. If he can't comply with your wishes, uninvite him. If he gets upset, it probably isn't a great loss. Not the a-hole. Most people wouldn't invite a homewrecker to their wedding months after the fact. It's up to your brother and his new girlfriend to dig themselves out of that hole. Your wedding isn't remotely the place for that. My brother, 18 male, is the star football player for our high school team. He was named one of Arizona's top high school football players. He's a senior, and last summer got into his dream school on a football scholarship. All his life, his dream was to play D1 football in college, and he achieved that, and I'm so proud of him and all he has achieved. However, this college is across the country. He is my parents' pride and joy, and in our house, we eat, sleep, and breathe football. My parents made so many sacrifices for him to play, including moving to another city because our previous cities, his team wasn't as good as our current one. My parents have always put him first, and I, 14 female, have just gotten used to it, to a point. I've accepted they will always care about his football more than they'll ever care about anything I do, and I'm not even mad because he's an incredible player and a person who makes me proud to be his sister. My parents, however, forget I exist sometimes. They've only been to maybe a handful of my soccer games. I've played since I was 6. They claimed because it always clashed with his football games, and I always got annoyed that they could never miss one to come see me, including when I went to state. They even skipped my cousin's wedding because he had a game that day. I recently saw my mom looking at houses near his college. When I asked her why she was doing that, she said my father and her were going up there to look at houses because we were going to move up there with him. I got furious because they already decided this was happening, and it was the first I was hearing of it. I told them they're forgetting they have another child, and that I still have high school here, and my soccer team is here, and she said, that doesn't matter, you can play in Massachusetts when we move, implying my sport doesn't matter as much as his. I said she needs to stop being so obsessed with my brother and learn how to parent better, because she nearly doesn't give a crap about me. She called me ungrateful and said I should be happy for him. I stormed out and have been staying at a friend's since the fight. My brother called and texted me a few times asking me to come home, or at least to tell him I'm okay. I feel bad because he is the collateral damage in this between me and my parents, and it's not his fault, but I'm so sick of just letting it go and them forgetting about me. Not the a-hole. You're absolutely justified in feeling sidelined, no pun intended, sorry. It's great that they're nurturing your brother, even if his football career may never go past college, given the statistics on college to NFL numbers. But to completely disregard you in the meantime is wrong. Family counseling may help them understand just how one-sided they're being. I will say, don't let anger and bitterness take over. Realistically, in this life, the things we do to fulfill ourselves are better in the long run than the approval of others, even loved ones. Update. So, my brother showed up at my friend's house earlier today and told me to get in the car. I got in and he took me out for lunch and said he wanted to talk to me. He was kind of pissed that I went MIA for 4 days and didn't respond to him because he was getting really worried, and he had to personally call my friend's parents to ask them if I was there. I apologized. I didn't realize how worried he was. That was my mistake, and I'll admit that. I just wanted some space, but I shouldn't have disappeared like that. But what pissed me off is that my parents didn't try reaching out to me, just him, but I think they knew I was with my friend. So at lunch, he told me he had previously said to my mom months ago that the biggest thing he hates about moving to college is how much he was going to miss me specifically. He knew we would probably not stay as close as we are now since we'd be far apart and doing different things with our lives. My mom took that as him hinting to want us to move up there with him, which he didn't want. And this whole time there was just a huge miscommunication on their end, and it's finally being revealed. My brother does want the space from my parents. Bet you can guess why. And he told them that after I left. Apparently, my parents and him got into a huge fight because he called them out for treating us so differently, and that it was unfair to me. My mom denied treating us different, to which he called her delusional, and she started crying. After their fight, no one was really talking to anybody in the house, and he said the tension was so high. He asked me to come home, and I agreed. So on the drive back to my friend's house to get my stuff, my mom texts me saying, "Come home now." When we arrived, both my parents were sitting and waiting for us. We talked, and she said, "I'm sorry you feel we don't pay as much attention to you." This pissed me off, because she was clearly gaslighting me. My brother called her out on that, and my dad intervened, said, "You know what she means." My parents said they'll try to do better, but I feel like those were just empty words to get me to stop complaining. We came to the agreement that moving was not in the future, to which both me and my brother were relieved. I'm going to miss him terribly, and we both love each other to death. But moving across the country for him to go to college was not a good idea. I know it doesn't sound like it, but my parents are good people, and I do love them a lot. They just have their moments. Like all people, they are human. Also, for those wondering, he is going to the school he chose for academia. His top priority wasn't football. He understands the chances of going pro, and of course it's his dream. But overall, his academics was his top priority when picking a school, and he was just going to play football because he loves it. I was male 50 when this happened. When Dave was 18, he got Carly pregnant. She was 15 at the time. I didn't even know until her parents dropped her off at our house, baby in hand, saying she was our problem now. Carly was obviously a mess. I was furious for many reasons, and Dave tried to argue that it wasn't his child and that Carly was a W that slept with everyone. So I said simple, paternity test. Carly easily agreed, and the child came out to be Dave's. So I did what any decent person would do and invited her into our home. Dave said he wanted nothing to do with Eve or Carly, and I said fine, because God knows forcing a man to be a father will make him an awful father, and he hopped off to college to avoid any responsibilities. Carly was a mess through all of this. She was thrown into a scary situation, so I didn't blame her. She was adamant about being a good mother. After a lot of thinking and hard choices, I decided to adopt Eve as my daughter, and we had Carly transferred to a charter school so she could also take care of Eve. It was obviously a weird dynamic, but we got the hang of it. Now, this was all 4 years ago, and I have housed Carly and Eve since then. Carly has always been very appreciative, and though we plan to tell Eve what happened when she's old enough to understand, we let her call me Daddy as of current. I love Eve with all my heart. She's such an amazing little girl and couldn't have turned out better. Carly is an amazing mother despite being so young. Dave has always avoided coming home when he could, but since what happened with the pandemic, I've been telling him he could come home, that he's always welcome. Well, it came to a point where he snapped at me and basically said, "I won't come home till they leave." Speaking of Eve and Carly, we argued about it for quite some time. Week after week, it was the same thing of me saying he could come home and etc. Until one week, he looked at me and said, "It's them or me." And without hesitation, I said them. To say the least, he was pissed and has blocked me everywhere. My sister and a few of my relatives say I'm the a-hole. A lot of others say I'm not. But I'm not even sure myself. I don't want to lose my son. I love him to hell and back. But I'm not putting my daughter and her mother on the streets for him. I'm at a loss because I honestly do feel like an a-hole for saying what I said to my son. I don't think you are the a-hole for supporting a young mother and your grandchild who are appreciative and loving of that support. As you adopted, you are the father now and cannot just give up your kid. I do think you need to wind back the clock on the complexities of your titles, roles, etc., and seek advice about introducing the concept of adoption from like now, so it's normal. If the mother still acts as the mother and you are the ward, it's always going to be confusing, and your young daughter is going to know from her peers it's not a regular family structure. I suggest being honest and seeing a counselor of some sort to figure all that out. Your son is angry and avoiding being in your house. What counseling has he gotten post-adoption? Is he getting support? You can't make him, but he hasn't adjusted at all. Adopting is hard enough, but it's in his face daily. That has to be a lot. You'd be an a-hole if you didn't put your daughter first. Your son's behavior is disgusting. I know it hurts to hear, but he really is horrible. You, however, are a stand-up guy, and you did a great thing by adopting your daughter and standing by C. What a nightmare she's been through. Parents that tossed her out like garbage after most likely making her pregnancy a living hell. You did the right thing. You seem like a great dad, and you are absolutely not the a-hole. But I am sorry your son turned out like he did, and I'm sorry he made you choose. Cutting a child off for any reason must be devastating. Hopefully, in time, he'll grow up and stop being a disgrace. I, 40 male, recently lost my father, 76 male. I have 2 siblings, my twin brother and older sister, 44. We all grew up together in my parents' house. It's a large multi-story 5-bedroom house worth almost $500,000. My father's will stated that his assets, cash, house, etc., were to be divided equally among the 3 of us. While in town for my father's funeral, I asked my siblings when a good time would be to meet up about putting the house on the market. My sister told me that there was no need because my father had sold the house prior to his death. I was confused because he was still living in it. My sister went on to explain that my father had been sick for years and was deep in debt, so he needed to sell the house. Of course, with his health as poor as it was, that would be a complicated undertaking. So my sister and her husband bought the house with the understanding that he would continue living there for free. I was flabbergasted. When my father died, he only had about $120K in liquid assets. Her story made no sense to me. I demanded details. She said that the mortgage lender would only approve them for $375K, which is far less than the house is worth. My dad apparently spent the other $250K paying off his debts, paying for treatments, and maintaining his quality of life, as my sister put it. So basically, she's telling me that my inheritance is $40K and no more, while she gets that plus a house. I called her a thief that took advantage of our father when he was vulnerable. She basically pocketed the difference in the value of the house out of my inheritance. She got really mad. She told me that she and her husband have been struggling to pay 2 mortgages for years, while also raising 4 kids. Not my kids, not my problem. And getting no income from the second house. But that was her choice, and she got a house out of it. She started yelling at me and crying, so her husband intervened and took her away. I turned to my brother for support, but he shrugged and said he couldn't find it within him to care about a house after he just buried Dad. I miss Dad too, and I hate fighting with my sister, but what she did was wrong. I've reached out to a lawyer and am planning to sue my sister, but I'm nervous. I know this will permanently fracture my family. I just want what's rightfully mine, but is it worth blowing up my sister's life? Am I the a-hole? Yes, the a-hole. The rest of your family is grieving while you're over here crying about your inheritance. You're selfish, entitled, and greedy. Not only this, but your sister was there helping your dad. What did you do, OP? Except show up at the funeral and demand what is yours. You don't deserve anything beyond what he left you. The house was sold, and trying to sue her for what? Helping your dad? I can't imagine this legal action will go anywhere except to give your lawyer a nice payday. So you'll be giving away most of your 40K because you're greedy. Your existence must be so sad. While your father was just laid to rest, you want to fight over money. Sounds like your family will be better off without you. No one wants to deal with the toxic relative. Yes, the a-hole, a greedy one. Yes, the a-hole. It sounds like the house belongs to your sister and wasn't your dad's to will to you. Your dad was sick and in debt. Your sister and your brother-in-law took on another mortgage to purchase the house from him. They let him live rent-free and allowed him to repay his debts. Where were you in all this?